old is really not being capable of doing what you want to do and depending a lot on other people to help you.
An older person, as everyone accepts it usually, is someone in the area of 60 and above in age.
People that are just, you know, they don't work anymore, just collect Social Security and have nothing to do.
I think anywhere from the age of 55. In my mind, I think of 55.
Somebody's, we'll say, coming down the home stretch, more or less, you know.
Well, I think of an older person as a person who's just, you know, really sick and about to die.
I don't think it's a positive term, and especially in our society. I think senior citizens tends to have derogatory connotations.
A person is putting himself down, I think, if he considers himself old, because you're only as old as you feel.
Let's face it, it's a young world. It's hard.
What is old age? A happy time of life when you retire, free of the burdens of earning a living, free of the responsibilities of raising a family, golden years in which you can enjoy yourself, do those things you've always wanted to do? Or is old age a sad time of life, fraught with money problems, health problems, alienation from your family and from our youth-oriented society? Well, it depends. For it's just as hard to generalize about old people as it is to generalize about youth. There are many faces of age, as many as there are old people, and old age is different for each one of them, as it will be different for each one of us.
3 of them weigh how much? Here's a penny. 75 pounds on 3, okay. If you put those 3 then by the door right there together, so I'll know which ones they are. And then mark 73 on top of them, so I'll know which is which. Greyhound Burlingame. Well, in regard to where out of state? Well, I'm going to give you a number.
Is Marion Nuns old? You certainly couldn't tell by her routine. She works 10 to 12 hours a day. She puts in a 6-day week, runs her own life much the way she's done for the last 40 years. It doesn't seem to matter that Marion was born in 1901 and is 78 years old.
When we mark 73 on this one?
I open up at 7 every morning, but I very seldom ever get out of here before 5 o'clock. So, and the only time I ever get out early is on my hair appointment at 3 o'clock.
Okay, so were you in at 7 o'clock this morning?
Oh, yeah, I came 7 this morning, and I'll be back here at 7 tomorrow morning until 6 tomorrow night.
So we're talking, it's past 6 o'clock. You've already put in an 11-hour day.
Yeah,
Which is not unusual?
No. But I think that my job here is what keeps me young, my interest in people. Because the way I feel, years don't mean a thing. It's your health and your outlook on life.
Watching Marion Nuns in action can make you throw out everything you've ever heard about how to stay healthy and live long. Marion has a terrible diet, coffee and snacks. She smokes all day long, drinks, gambles, gets very little rest. Yet at 78, she's as healthy as could be.
My health? Well, I think it's excellent. I haven't even had a cold in 17 years. I never have a headache, never have any body aches or anything.
What's the secret?
Brat, I guess. No, it's just that the only time I learned something was I just haven't been sick, and everybody screams because they don't think I eat enough. Like today now, all I've had is 2 little pieces of cheese and coffee and chocolate. And if I feel like eating at home, I will. If I get home, I won't. I'll make a cup of tea and sit down and watch TV. Oh, Shasta.
At 78 years old, many senior citizens have been retired for 13 years or more. But Marion doesn't think about retirement.
I have no family. My husband's been gone 17 years. And I've seen a few people that have retired, like this one lady that took the bus here every day when she worked in Hillsdale. She retired 3 months. She comes walking in and says, "Where do I get the bus to Hillsdale?" And I thought, boy, I don't want to get that forgetful that fast, you know what I mean? But I don't think age really means anything. It's your health and your outlook on life. And I enjoy the people. And why should I sit home like a dope? Many people come in and say, oh, I'm so happy to see you're still here and so forth. It's been a nice association. In fact, I got a call from San Rafael last month, I think it was. The lady wanted to know what time the bus left San Rafael for San Francisco. And I heard her drop the money, and I said, oh, my goodness, you call me from San Rafael? You have a depot there. I know it, Marion, but I used to live in Burlingame. When the hell was the depot here? You always give the right information. So, you know, those things are gratifying.
Relaxing for Marion means going to Candlestick Park on the weekend to catch the Giants or the 49ers. Marion is an avid sports fan.
Yeah, I like sports. Yes, I didn't get to go as much this year as I wanted to because I worked quite a bit. In fact, I only got to go about 5-6 times this year. And I used to sell Giant tickets at one time. And then after that wasn't being done anymore, I could call Mr. Schwartz up and say, how about 2 lower stand reserves for Mr. So-and-so? He'd say, okay, Marion, tell him to call Window 17. They'll be there. And he'd save tickets for me. And then, of course, I've had charters, like when Beersley's was open, why whole busload of us would go.
Relaxing during the week means a leisurely drive home from work in her 29-year-old Studebaker, though sometimes she doesn't go straight home.
I go to Broadway, and if I have any shopping to do, you know, food or anything, or stuff for my dog or what I need, I shop. I stop at the Cinnabar, and I have a highball, which most people would laugh at. 7-Up and ginger ale, and very light on the bourbon and sugar. You didn't know it was a drink, really. And then I check the board because I take some chances on the baseball board and the football board and so forth. Take a couple for some of my friends at the Sterling Klingers, and then one for me and my dog, and one in memory of my husband. Usually the first thing I do is put my robe on.
When she does get home, Marion feeds her 17-year-old dog Muggins, takes out her teeth, fixes herself a cup of coffee, and lights up another cigarette for an evening's relaxation. Part of being 78 years old is having a long past, and Marion spends some of her time reminiscing about the good old days. This is Marion and her husband back in 1934. But forget for a moment that Marion's teeth are in a cup, that her face is a bit wrinkled, and that she was 27 when Herbert Hoover beat Al Smith, and you have a 78-year-old woman to whom age is really irrelevant.
Well, in fact, I don't feel 78, and I just don't think of it. In fact, I'm kind of proud of being 78 and being the way I am. I guess that's one way of putting it. I don't mean to brag, but maybe I am bragging a little bit. But I've always said years don't mean anything. It's your outlook on life and your health.
So you think...
Marion Nuns may seem to be an exception, but she's not really. The problem is that the image many people have of old age is just wrong, a stereotype which doesn't pan out. Marion is more typical than atypical. More than 70% of our senior citizens are heads of households. Nearly 3/4 are completely self-supporting, and only 5% of the people over 65 live in convalescent homes. And while we sometimes reminisce about the good old days, when we supposedly took better care of our senior citizens, many gerontologists believe that old people in our society have never had it so good.
I think that largely people are made more aware of life about them, that in a 5-generation family or a 4-generation family as we used to know it, that Grandpa and Grandma sort of sat over there in the corner in their rocking chair, and they were part of what was going on around them. There weren't the senior opportunities. There weren't clubs. There weren't church groups that tried to bring them out of that setting and to keep them active and interested in what was going on by virtue of social activities or craft activities, dancing. You know, that's... People never used to dance after you were 65 or 70. That just wasn't the thing to do. But today, it's an opportunity.
Now centers pass through and the left alley man a corner. Walk back and promenade with the partners all. Promenade around the blue and I get back home, and then when I get there now let's join hands, circle to the right.
The white-haired man in the plaid shirt is John Atwood, 72 years old. For some people, retirement means inactivity, but that's certainly not the case for John. This is a typical evening's entertainment for John, square dancing with the young folks. This is not a senior citizens dance, just a square dance at Ellis Elementary School in Sunnyvale.
When I get there now, you do an element left with a corner girl. Walk back to the partner, stack the wood.
And when John's not dancing, he's hiking with the Sierra Club here at Bear Gulch Trail in Wonderlick County Park, 10-15 miles a day. John lives in a retirement community called Life's Garden, a very comfortable residence for senior citizens located in Sunnyvale. Most people in their 70s, like John, find a wife or husband especially meaningful and comforting, companionship in the later years. But John and his wife just recently divorced after being married nearly 40 years.
My wife, in a way, made the decision. And since our marriage had cooled, so much so that it was not the terrible wrench that it might have been. We both were good parents, I believe, and but we were not good marriage partners, I suppose.
Despite being away from his wife and his children, John has enjoyed retirement, and part of the reason may be that he was prepared for it.
Being an engineer, I immediately went to the library when I considered retiring, looked up the books on retirement, and I remember one of them was for the wives of the retirees and how they should prepare themselves for the trauma, the shock to the man who was retiring. And I expected some of that, you know, particularly since I had been so fond of my work. So when I came out here, I had a loose arrangement for doing some consulting work while I was out here, and I found I didn't have time. I was just so busy bicycling and working on the house and walking, hiking with Sierra Club that I didn't have time to do that consulting work. So I haven't missed it.
So you didn't find it difficult to move from full-time employee to retirement?
No, it's an entirely different life. I kind of, it seems as if I shifted gears and a different way of living, and I've enjoyed it.
The one thing John doesn't like about being a senior citizen is the way some people treat him.
Often there's a little tendency to think of us as senior citizens and then to treat us with as if we were a little bit childish. And that can make a lot of us angry. And we tend to walk away from a situation like that. We see that even among some professional gerontologists.
Maybe John doesn't like being treated like a child, but he says he feels more like a teenager than a senior citizen.
I don't feel like a senior citizen, and I think that you young fellas don't realize that inside an older person he's the same person he was 30, 40, 50 years ago. And so he doesn't automatically change at the age of 62 from not a senior citizen to a senior citizen who is now wise and should be respected and revered and all that sort of thing. I don't figure I'm a bit smarter than I was when I was 59. I've asked a few people how old are they inside, and I've told them that I'm about 12 years old. That is kind of a choice of mine, and I like to feel that I am, and I enjoy myself as if I were a 12-year-old. And I noticed that many people don't like to say that they are 16, that they are 18. They like to say maybe 20. Life is pretty hard when you're young. I think as you go through adolescence, it's tough. So that's the advantage I have. I've gone through adolescence. Another thing that I have, being this old, is I appreciate human nature, and I appreciate humans, and I value humans, people, so much more than I did when I was younger. So I'd say there are a good many advantages in being older.
John not only bikes, hikes, and square dances, he has a paper route delivering the morning paper to all the residents at Life's Garden. And John continues to do what he loves most, putter around with things. Not only is John's body active, but his mind continues to whir away. During his years as a research engineer, John earned over 50 patents. And now, at 72, he's still experimenting. Here with a biofeedback device, which he hopes will help people get rid of headaches. And he fixes things for his friends at Life's Garden. Here, a new key for an electronic organ. So for John, old age is a happy time of life. And the secret, he says, is staying active.
Sure, there are other men here, and they're not as lucky as I am in having the physical health that I do. But the ones that seem happiest to me are the ones that are the busiest. And some of them are pretty well handicapped physically, but they still are active. And they're the ones that, to me, seem the happiest. Now, it's a little hard to say. I can't look in the fellow's mind. I can't tell if the man who's just sitting in the lobby holding his stick, you know, whether he's happy or not. But I think that the man who's out with a hoe, even if he is bent over, is a happier man.
John is somewhat of an exception. For many men do find retirement a traumatic experience. Dr. Bonnie Russell is a gerontologist and the past chairman of California's Commission on Aging.
Retirement comes for many people as a shock. It's a change from a busy, important life with a contribution attached to it, being able to contribute to your community, to your society, and suddenly find that nobody wants you anymore. Now, the person who is a mature, integrated person can move immediately from job into something that replaces the job, so that he continues his role in society, a role in society. The person who is not as able sometimes finds it a very difficult thing to adapt to the changing world or the new world where he doesn't have a role.
Ironically, the problem of old age is not limited to the people who are old, for it is often the children of the old who must also face up to the problems of age.
One of the major problems that the young have is when mother or dad reaches the stage where they can no longer be cared for in the home and really must be in an institution, probably a nursing home. The young feel very, very guilty about that, not realizing that oftentimes it's being in the nursing home that will help the older person to become more able to be cared for properly. And our nursing homes, some of them being very good, do help to rehabilitate the older person, and not all older people nowadays stay in the nursing home the rest of their lives. It may be only a temporary kind of thing where they can be home from time to time.
This is Field Communications in San Francisco.
For the Yasunaka family, old age is no big deal. For out of cultural tradition and a sense of responsibility, the Yasunakas just take it for granted that Shizaku, Frank's mother, will always live with them.
For myself, I see it this way. Your parents raised you and brought you up. Now it's our turn to show our way how we appreciate what they did for us. This is the reason why I keep my mother with myself too. She's been real good to us. And, well, like I did say, that it's really like it's paying back for what they've done for you.
And then now get the bowl.
Shizaku is 82 years old, and since both Amy and Frank work, she usually prepares dinner.
That's not enough.
Shizaku is a healthy woman, and so not much of a burden to the Yasunaka family. But what would happen if things changed and Shizaku needed more care?
My idea is, well, I have to quit working and take care of her. That's the only way I can look at it.
You'd be prepared to do that?
Mm-hmm. I'm prepared to do that.
Is it any different because you're her daughter-in-law rather than her daughter?
It might. I don't know.
Would that be difficult for you from a economic point of view to stop working and not have that?
Well, I guess it would be a problem, but I guess we can all manage. My two older boys are out, and he can sacrifice some little things, I guess.
Would you think at all about ever having your mother live in some kind of sort of institutional setting?
No.
No, I don't think so.
I don't see it that way.
Do you think that's a bad thing to do?
Myself,
I don't know. That's how we feel. I feel.
I don't like it.
I couldn't put her in.
Could you tell me why?
Well, they'll be lonesome too themselves. For yourself, you want to be left alone that way. I want to be left alone.
You mentioned before that you yourselves wouldn't like to be put in a home when you get older, and you'd like to be treated the way you're treating your mother right now. I want to get a feeling for why you feel that way. What are the negative things you see about living away from your family and in a home?
Well, like we all get together and have fun, and my sister-in-law comes over for dinner, and we all usually sit down and, chat about little things in front of the TV. And I guess it's family life.
One complaint we often hear about grandma living at home is that the grandchildren resent it. No more privacy, differing lifestyles, and so on. But none of this seems to bother 15-year-old Alton Yasunaka.
I think it's great. She does stuff for me and makes my bed when I don't do it.
He's spoiled.
I think it's just great having grandma around,
Do you think about when you're going to be old, how you would like to be treated?
Yeah. Same way.
What does it mean to you if I were to ask you, tell you that somebody was old or a senior citizen? What does that mean?
I don't know. Sometimes it means to me somebody to care about.
Herb Schwartz is almost 60 years old. By some standards, a senior citizen himself. Yet Herb's problem is not his own old age, but that of his father, Abraham. Herb thought he had the problem of his father's care solved when he arranged for him to live at a senior citizen residence apartment in San Francisco. But then along came an ordinance saying that senior citizens who use walkers must live on the ground floor so they can get out easily in case of fire. Abraham lived on the second floor, and that was against the law. So Abraham had to move out.
Oh, what a big job this is.
And his son Herb had to go looking yet again for another place for his father to live. Finding a new place wasn't easy because Abraham, who is 86 years old, needs a lot of care.
Let's see, he's hard of hearing. He has diabetes, and he has an amputation, and he has suffered a stroke there that left his speech patterns affected. And so he also has a trouble expressing himself, so you will, if you talk to him, he might say he for she or she for he, or he might say weeks for days or months for years or days for years, so you have to play 20 questions with him when he actually is talking to you. No, they're going to see you. They're going to see you some more. You don't have to wave goodbye.
While the Yasunaka children never thought of putting Shizaku in an institution, but instead kept her at home with them, the Schwartzes didn't think that keeping 86-year-old Abraham at home would work.
That wasn't possible because of the fact that both my wife and I are working, and there has to be someone around him in the event he has an accident.
And Herb says his father didn't really want to live at home with them.
After he had the stroke, and he was living with us, he'd expressed a desire to get out on his own and go back to living in San Francisco.
So he did live with you for a while after he had the stroke?
Yes, briefly, for I guess about a month, and he just couldn't stand it.
Why couldn't he stand it?
Well, just because he was busy then, and he was able to get out and take the streetcar and go where he wanted to in San Francisco and be with his friends and play cards and do whatever he normally did there. He used to check in with us every night, though, so we knew that he was all right and he didn't need anything.
But while putting your aging parent in a home may solve some problems, it creates some others, one of which is the high cost of paying for institutional care.
Well, prior to his moving, he had enough money to handle everything. Now it's about $150 more, and so my sister and brother and I will share whatever costs are necessary for it. He kind of resents their having to depend on somebody else, but that's the conditions that are. One of the things that kind of confused me is the fact that if you have your own money and you're able to handle it, then there are no problems. But the minute you have to depend on government, then the cost becomes so prohibitive. Either you've got to be bankrupt or quite wealthy.
Herb says he doesn't feel guilty about putting his father in a home. The new home seems nice enough, a small private care home which he shares with 4 women residents and a housekeeper. And Herb says when he gets older, he would not want to live with his children.
Well, I kind of like the thought of being as independent as possible and not being a burden to anyone. And I think under the, if inflation doesn't kill me, I'll be able to handle it.
The problems the children of the aging face are serious ones, so much so that many communities now conduct group therapy sessions for the children of the aged, like this one at the Community Mental Health Center of Peninsula Hospital in Burlingame.
What about the question of, we've talked about this before, and I'm wondering if somebody have some other thoughts about the whole question of the persons that we have responsibility for living with us or living in another arrangement, whether it's outside of our home and like alone in their own place or in another facility. How does the residence and the living arrangements of the other people affect you? What kinds of concerns or fears do you have around that?
One of the biggest things is the housing of will I have a place to live? Will I be able to take care of myself in this place? Will somebody care about me? Mm-hmm. Where will I go when I can no longer take care of myself? And how much will it cost?
What do you do with a person that thinks that she is unable to do anything? You know, how frustrated can the other person get in doing for the person that thinks that she can? I mean, is not able to function. You can wait on them and feed them, help bathe them. You can do anything you want for them, but you cannot change their outlook.
I do worry. I feel guilty and I worry. And when I come home, he's fine. But the thing is, sometimes I'm afraid that someday I'm going to come in there and he's going to be gone. Now, I'm not afraid of him dying, because I know that this is life and this is what's going to happen. And I told my husband, when he first moved in with us, I was afraid to wake up in the morning he's going to be gone. And now, since he's been with us, I've accepted the fact, and when he does go, it's not going to bother me.
As we've seen, facing up to the difficulties and dilemmas of old age can cause serious adjustment problems for the children of senior citizens and for the senior citizens themselves. But there are many exceptions, and Dorothy Cave is certainly one of them. Despite the fact that Dorothy is 77 years old, a widow, the victim of a stroke, confined to a wheelchair, paralyzed on the left side of her body, and with an income far below the poverty level, Dorothy Cave is fiercely independent and incredibly positive and optimistic in her approach to life.
Well, I think senior citizens all think, oh, I'm old, I can't do this and I can't do that. Well, I don't believe in that. And I don't talk about my ailments any more than I have to. And I mean, there's a lot of thinking that they don't do that I do.
Like what?
Well, I mean, I don't think old age. I never think of people as being old. They're just real people, that's all.
And with an attitude like that, you can guess what Dorothy's answer was when I asked her if she worried about her health problems.
No, because I'm supposed to be getting better. I mean, with strokes, you don't go backward, you go forward.
So you just really don't worry about problems?
No, never think of it. Never think of it. I'm just going to get better, and I can't wait until I can walk out and drive my car.
While Dorothy was thinking about driving her car again, her doctors were telling her that she could no longer take care of herself, not even the basic things like dressing and bathing. But for Dorothy, that wasn't good enough.
I was thinking in bed one night, I bet I could do this or I could do that. And when the therapist came the next day, I said, I want to see if I can't take a bath alone. And she said, well, how do you figure on doing it? And I told her that I had had a grab bar put up on the wall. And she said, well, let's see. So I took off my shoes and brace and made a dry run for her. And she said, that's all right, you can do it alone.
It's quite amazing, actually, Dorothy, that you do everything for yourself here, and you've been able to adjust so much to having the handicap after your stroke. Is it difficult for you? Was this a difficult process to get used to?
No, not really. I just knew I had to do it, and I wanted to do it, and I had to, just did it.
Dorothy didn't have to depend on herself. She has a daughter in San Jose, and the doctors told her she ought to move in with her. But Dorothy said she never seriously considered living with her daughter.
She has a room, but she couldn't handle it. She's a high school teacher, and she couldn't handle it. The doctor asked me that before I came home from the hospital, and I said, well, in the first place, I don't think we'd get along. She's fussy and I'm fussy, and I don't think we'd hit it off.
Do you mind living alone, being by yourself?
Not at all. Not at all.
You don't feel the need for any organized care of any sort?
No, I never have.
Would you feel uncomfortable living in the situation like some other people who are senior citizens do in a retirement home? What is it about that you don't like?
I think it would bore me having so many people around me all the time. And I don't think I'd like that. I like being able to do my own thing.
But doing her own thing, in fact, hasn't been easy for Dorothy. For many of the things she used to do and liked to do, she can't do anymore. But in typical Dorothy fashion, she is anything but sorry for herself.
What would you say is the most difficult part about being at this stage of your life?
Well, just the things that I can't do, that I like to do. Sew, play the piano, fix my hair, and iron, and do things. Those are the things that bother me that I can't do.
How about before you had your stroke? You were still in your early 70s.
Yeah.
Were there difficult aspects of being that age then, even when you had...
No, because I look 60.
So the fact is, you're saying that being in your 70s has really never bothered you.
Didn't bother me at all.
It's just the effects of the stroke.
Not when you walk down the street and get a second look.
What day of the week is today?
A second look? That's a thing of the past for these women.
November the 5th. November the 5th? 5th, 1979. Exactly. That's it. Today is November 5th, 1979. Let's begin with the exercises. First with the deep...
This is old age in a convalescent home. This particular one, Beverly Manor in Los Gatos.
3, up and down. 4, up and down.
Rosie. She's been here so long, no one knows where she came from. No family, no friends, just her doll there beside her. Carl, sent here when a state-owned institution was closed down due to budget cuts. No history, no friends, no relatives. At least he can find some comfort in a book, as long as his failing eyesight holds out. Your first visit to a convalescent home can be a depressing experience. Though only 5% of the nation's elderly live in nursing homes, for those who do, life can be very difficult. Away from familiar surroundings, isolated from their children, family, and friends, in failing health and facing astronomical costs. A bed in a convalescent home like this one can run to $40 a day. Average nursing home costs more than $1,200 a month, and the government doesn't pay for it all. The biggest problem is that most of the residents of convalescent homes are there against their will, often the result of decisions made not by them, but by their children.
Are there people who come here who frankly don't want to come here?
Oh, there's plenty of people like that. There really are. I think that anyone who's lived a fairly independent life would not relish the idea of going into an institution, because at Julia we try to make things homey and make it like as less institutional as you can, but there's no way that you can completely eradicate that.
What would you say is the greatest adjustment problem people have when they come into an institution like this?
I would say it'd be their loss of freedom, their freedom of choice, freedom of schedule, and in a sense their identity, in that they are no longer able to do things the way they've always done them in an independent setting. They're having to be dependent on people for things from to be bathed, to be dressed in certain cases. The eating hours are at a time that they may not be accustomed to. It's a great adjustment in their freedom of choice. There really aren't too many people in this facility that could not be here or that don't belong here. The majority really do. The cost of the care these days takes care of people who don't belong here.
Talk to any resident of a convalescent home and ask them what they most look forward to, and they'll tell you: a visit from their children. But those visits are often few and far between.
Many children are very considerate of their parents, but I think it is important for a parent to realize that in the world we live in today, people are so busy that to expect, for instance, a child to come and see the parent every day or even twice a week might be too much, and maybe even once a week is quite a bit. And so I would hope that older people would realize this. At the same time, I think it is unfortunate that some young people do forget about their parents. I think one of the reasons it can become very difficult to visit if the parent has been extremely ill and unable to communicate quite as well or something like that. I think it really is hard to visit for a long period of time, maybe 2-3 minutes, but more than that it gets to be a problem sometimes. So I think there has to be understanding on both sides. I don't think we should make babies out of our senior citizens, because they really aren't that. I think we should rather try to help them understand their children have their families and lives to live too, and so do we, and there ought to be kind of a mutual understanding if we can foster that at all.
In that sense, Lee Anderson is lucky. She has 2 daughters, and they visit her frequently here at Beverly Manor Convalescent Home, and they often take Lee home on the weekend. But it seems odd to talk about Lee as being lucky. She's lived in this home for 6 years now. She's had to learn to walk again 3 times after 2 strokes and a broken hip. She had to learn how to write left-handed since her right arm is paralyzed following her last stroke. And now, with one leg shorter than the other due to the broken hip, Lee is pretty much confined to her wheelchair. But Lee says she not only doesn't mind living in a convalescent home, in fact, she likes it.
I wouldn't live with my family at all, because I can't put my shoes on, for instance, and I could do most of the things myself, but I wouldn't want to interfere with their lives. I'm thankful that there is a Beverly Manor that I can go to, and this is a good place. We had all the young people at our house when we were first married, and my girls are doing the same thing with their families, and I would be interfering with their lives, and I wouldn't want to do that. And they couldn't go when they please, and I'm thankful for this place.
The secret to Lee's positive attitude and indeed satisfaction with living in a convalescent home is her continuing sense of self-worth. For Lee has taken on the role of self-appointed cheerleader at Beverly Manor. 71 years old, confined to a wheelchair, but with a continuing mission to help others who are even less fortunate than she.
Well, I think I live a day at a time, and I try to accomplish as much in that day as I can. visiting patients and doing things like that. And I don't think I look ahead for anything.
When you say you try to accomplish as much as you
Yes.
can in any one day, in what way? What would you consider an accomplishment for the day?
Doing something for others and doing something that I can go to bed and feel that I could say, well, I did this and I did that. And if I have a day when I haven't accomplished very much, I don't feel very good about it. But there's a little lady here, she imagines a lot and she's in despair. And I try to talk with her and reason with her and help her, because she's not complaining, it's real to her. And I help her. But the other complaints, I tell them they could be so much worse off than they are, and that's true. We should be thankful for the things that we can do, and if we're not in severe pain, I think there's nothing worse than that. But make use of what you have in some way or other. I think they need encouragement.
Encouragement to do what? Encouragement
to do those things that if they just come in here and don't make any effort, I don't know what's going to happen to them.
What will happen to them? It's difficult to be old in this country these days, for old people are as much the victims of discrimination and prejudice as any other minority group.
In a sense, the problem for older people is fundamentally a political one, because while the notion of sexism and the notion of racism have both had political consequences and subsequent changes in policy, the notion of ageism is a relatively new one. That is, that age itself will be a discriminating factor in terms of job opportunities and in terms of all sorts of resources.
Is one of the problems of being old the fact that the media portray being old as such a terrible thing?
I think if the media portray ageism at all, it's in a negative light. But the worst thing is that it's not portrayed at all. That is, that the concentration is still very much, apart from the changes in attitudes in the 60s, something which is not portrayed in the screen. It's still very much the case. If you look at content analysis studies of what goes on television programs, still very much the case that age is largely separated. Now, so I think, yes, the media does support the notion of marginality, of the old as weak and feeble, and the old as incapable of normal human life. But worse than that, there's a complete lack of support or lack of presentation of the aging process itself in most mainstream television.
We're beginning to see, as Chris said, what happens is we don't see the aging at all much, and if they are presented, they're presented in a rather negative way. But I think we're just beginning to see an era when, for example, the protagonists in novels are beginning to be a little older, are beginning to be quite a bit older, and are beginning to be portrayed as being more glamorous, if you will. Not trying to act or look young, not trying to redo oneself cosmetically, but they're just beginning to be portrayed as being okay at their age.
There is a very fundamental and pragmatic reason for changes in attitudes that might come about, and that is the market for older people is something that people are thinking about. People are now starting to market for an older group. Now, one of the main reasons people have argued that we had a youth culture which was consumer-based and so important during the 50s and 60s was simply the large number of young people who bought in the marketplace. Now, when you change the demographic structure of society and increase the number of people over 65 so that they have very real buying power, then one can see a change in the market economy and perhaps a change in attitudes as a result of it.
When Chris Wilkes talks about the changing demographic structure of our society, he simply means there will be more old people. For if you think that being over 65 means waiting around to die, you're very wrong. If you are 65 right now, your life expectancy is more than 16 years. There are 25 million people in the country right now who are over 65, and that number will jump to 38 million by the year 2000. Know what's the fastest growing segment of the American population right now? People over 85. But merely staying alive longer is not the only goal in life. Paul Bielfeldt is 80 years old, but retirement and old age have been a big disappointment for him. He now lives in this convalescent home. The only thing he looks forward to, the daily visit from his 77-year-old wife, Georgia. Like Lee and Dorothy, Paul had a stroke a few years ago. But unlike them, Paul has had difficulty overcoming the psychological and emotional consequences of failing health.
Well, I thought I had prepared so I would never have a stroke. I was so physically fit, and I exercised, and I had low blood pressure. The doctors all assured me I'd never have a stroke. And one morning, on the 11th of August, 1977, I'm standing on my patio, and my knees bent away, so I had to sit down. And Georgia saw me, and she called a paramed, and they took me to the hospital. So I did not fall, and I was not unconscious. But I was so surprised I couldn't get up, because I had been so active, and getting up was just nothing to me. But I could not get up. So we had it so perfect at Menlo Park, just what we'd want. Then I failed her. And what's so bad was when she calls me, I'm not there to help her. Like she fell and cut her forehead and called me, and I wasn't there.
For Paul and Georgia, the problems aren't only physical, but also financial. They spend over $2,000 a month right now to pay for Paul's convalescent home and Georgia's room in a nearby retirement village. And that doesn't leave much left, not even for necessities.
Do you expect to get well enough so that you would be able to leave this place?
Yes, I do. That's the unfortunate part of it. I don't have enough physical therapy, only what I inflict on myself.
You mean you feel the people here should be giving you more therapy?
No, they can't.
He does go to Veterans Hospital.
I'm unable to afford it. See, I've used up my 100 days in Medicare, so I have no help on my expenses, and I just don't feel we can afford any more expense, so I had to give up my therapy.
The saddest part of Paul's story is that he had looked forward so much to retirement. He had worked 43 years for the same company, anticipating that with his pension and Social Security, he would be able to lead the good life in his golden years. But it didn't work out that way.
We had discussed many times whether I could afford to retire. And at 65, we decided I could, because I had Social Security and a small pension.
So we
We'd
still
always
have it.
hoped to have a situation like we wound up with in Menlo Park, where we could be a nice, comfortable apartment close to where you could walk to the stores and the post office and the bank and the little house.
That's what we had.
And we had it perfect. And I had a nice patio and a nice little garden.
What were you anticipating that retirement would be like? What were you hoping for your retirement years?
Well, I thought we would have a small house or a small apartment and a little garden. for flowers and vegetables. And I thought maybe I could go fishing once in a while. I haven't fished once.
The frustrations and disappointments of the later years cause serious emotional problems for the elderly. So not only do they have to worry about their physical health, but often their mental health too. This is Peninsula Hospital in Burlingame, where they conduct an ongoing community mental health program for senior citizens.
It just looms up.
Eugene, having trouble facing up to old age and retirement.
I knew that it was coming. When you live up to a certain age, you know that it's inevitable. But when it comes to, fortunately, I'm not giving up my normal activity, only slowing down.
This is Hollis, depressed after a series of heart attacks.
Gene speaks about his heart attacks. I've had 3 of them now. But the last one was a dilly and put me into a pretty good state of depression.
Gordon Forbes, suffering from crying spells after the loss of 3 close relatives.
I had been, as Hollis, that you know, very deep in depression. And, of course, my doctor, why he had gotten, and I didn't know that, why the county nurse was calling on me was because he said I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown.
This is Ruth, a series of broken bones, and now she is in constant pain.
It's my bones are no good. They aren't. I just have to be careful I don't fall down.
And Virginia, widowed and despondent after her only daughter moved away.
My daughter left for Florida this morning, so I'm very kind of down in the dumps today.
There's nothing like being with somebody. Being all alone would drive you completely out of your mind. But being with somebody, they don't have to love you, but as long as you've got somebody that cares about you and likes you, not loves you, likes you, then you get along beautifully. And anyone that shows any kindness to me, I just try to go double what they're showing me. Why not? And that's the way I think life is.
Fortunately for Gordon, that is the way life is now for him. For after going through a severe depression and being left alone after 62 years of marriage, Gordon, age 85, and Isabel, age 76, found each other. And they now live together, despite what the neighbors might think.
My daughter came over because she was sort of skeptical, but she met Isabel and talked with her and all. And she says, Dad, she says, as far as I'm concerned, she says, I think it's wonderful. She said, because you and Isabel are hitting it off. And she said, I said, well, I said, Isabel at 76 and me at 85, I can assure you one thing, there's no hanky-panky.
Gee, I've never entered into any arrangement like that. I don't know what people say. I'm living with a man. I'm going to tell people.
For Gordon, meeting Isabel was a godsend. For he had been in the throes of the worst depression of his life, following a series of tragic losses.
Having an awful lot of trouble with despondency, because what happened there in that case was there was three quick deaths altogether.
First, it was Gordon's sister who died after a losing battle with breast cancer. And then Gordon found out that his young son was also dying of cancer.
I saw him a day or two before he died, and it was very sad because he said to me, Dad, he says, do you think there's any such thing as heaven? And of course, naturally, I tell him, I said, oh, certainly there is. You're going to meet your grandmother and your grandfather and all your parents. And my son was very close because he had never married, and he lived here helping me take care of Madeline. And Madeline was getting pretty bad at that time, and he says, Dad, he said, you just hang on, you'll make it. And then it wasn't too long after he had passed away that my wife had gone. So then, I'll tell you the truth, all I was doing is getting full of sobs. When I was alone and thinking about it, I was crying all the time. Then I got up at that Peninsula Hospital, and I'll tell you the truth right now, anything I dislike more than anything in this world are these damn psychiatrists. I mean, coming in and asking you, do you want to put yourself away? And I got so darn mad at him and lost my temper, and I said, have you got a wife? And he looked at me so funny, and he says, well, yes. I said, you're damn lucky. So then he said, I said to him, "Have you got a son?" He says, "Why, yes." I says, "You're awfully lucky." See? So I said, "Don't talk to me anymore, because if you're going to ask me these stupid questions," I said, you just answer them for yourself."
What the psychiatrist couldn't do for Gordon, Isabel could. Being with Isabel meant a new lease on life for Gordon. But living together in your 80s is apparently not much different from living together in your 20s. After a while, there's the inevitable
He has
spat.
a violent temper. And the problem is he'd call his daughter, or he'd have contact with anybody. If his daughter said, "I'm busy, I can't talk to you," he'd hang up. "I'm sorry, Dad, I can't talk to you." Well, right away, he'd be furious. Then he'd blow his top and take it out on me. See?
You didn't like that?
Oh, I'd be darned if I like that. And he'd scream and holler. And so I said, "No, I'm not living around that. I'd leave."
I kept telling Isabel, "Now listen, don't tell me what to do and what not to do." I said, "For heaven's sakes, for 85 years, I've gotten along pretty well on my own. Not only that, but as an orphan from about 4 years of age on up. So I said, I can well take care of myself." So we kind of had frictions, and Isabel was going to move out and everything else. And I said, "You just do as you want." I said, "Whatever you want to do, it's okay with me." I said, "I'll manage."
Now he's been, since I had everything packed up, except my clothes, and I've left it over there, I think he's sprouting wings now.
So I think Isabel, I don't know, but I think she went out to look into an apartment and a job. And I think the apartment was over $350 a month, plus I think the job was one of those bossy sort of things, you walk the chalk line or else. And she came back in the afternoon. Between you and me, I don't want to say it too out loud, but Isabel was just a charm. And it got so funny that at the end of the day, why, Isabel was so charming all the time. I said to Isabel, "May I kiss you goodnight?" And she began to laugh. And she said, "Well, you said you would never kiss me again for $100. So at any rate, why, and that ended it. So now it's gone along very, very nicely.
Gordon had to learn to deal with his own old age, the death of his son and his sister, the loss of his wife to failing health and senility. But at 85 years of age, Gordon has learned again how to be happy.
That what's getting me cured is being with Isabel in time. I don't need any damned old psychiatrist. Isabel's my psychiatrist, really and truly. And I'm telling you something, that's, in other words, it's love and kindness. And the hell with the sex, but it's love and kindness that gets you out of the out of your body, get you out back to earth.
One thing that doesn't seem to change with age is our need to love and be loved. For what we found was that the most important ingredient to happiness in the later years is love. Love for the people around you and love from those closest to you. Certainly in this sense, we are all the same, regardless of age.